Here's a situation, and I know you can identify. You log on to Zoom so you can teach your class, and before you lay a bunch of black squares or foreheads and ceiling fans, and then you try to engage with kids, get them to talk, get them to do something. It's just crickets. The question is, what do you do with that? And that's what we're going to talk about next. This is the question that is in the Facebook group now, and actually comes right from the Facebook group. So if you go to our Facebook group, Real Rap With Reynolds Teacher Talk, there is a lot of open conversation about education. And it's a group that's just for educators. There are no brands in there. No one's trying to sell you. So
I'm not so sure about that.
Well, every once in a while, someone tries to sell you something. Well, we just shut that down.
Get out of here.
Because what we're trying to create is a safe space for teachers to explore and express what it is to be a teacher, to help them be the teachers they're called to be. But the question had to do with, what do you do when no one wants to listen, when no one's engaging?
Okay, who's got food in here?
When you call on kids 97 times and no one responds.
You're not gonna get in trouble. I'm hungry.
And now what do I do with a class of nothing? And so I thought I'd speak to that. Before we even get into that question, I want to address this. I get this question a lot too. How do we handle cameras on Zoom? Are people requiring kids to have cameras on? Are they telling them they can have them off? If they're off, are they paying attention? If they're on, what's happening then? So first on the front end, I want to say that this is something that I feel is specific to your school, to the community with which you teach, because it's going to depend on where your kids are coming from and what's going on at the house. So for me, my students largely live in row homes in Philadelphia. Not everyone is proud about where they live or wants to show where they live. So there are some students that have the LED lights all over their room. They got graphics on the wall. It looks fresh in there. And it's their own room. They're alone. I have other students that, don't want to show where they're zooming in from. I have students that zoom in from the basement and don't want to show everybody where it is. I also have students that share a room with 4 other brothers that are all learning at the same time too. So it looks like crazy. It looks like WrestleMania behind them, and they don't feel safe sharing that with everyone. And that is completely understandable to me. Also, to me, I feel like the idea that a camera is on, that equaling paying attention doesn't really work for me.
Yes, teacher, I'm here. I can't wait to start skit.
Oh no, Eric, I think your computer is freezing up again.
Because you could have your camera on, but you're not paying attention because I'm looking at your forehead. You could have your camera on and you're...
Eric, you'll just have to listen again, okay?
Really just looking the same way and playing Fortnite at the same time, but your hands are down here so no one can really tell, and it doesn't really look like you're paying attention at all. And that's because you're not. So I'm not big on the camera thing. Just wanted to say that on the front end. So the first step in dealing with this is to remember that education's only ever about the students, right? I'm saying this all the time. It is the focus. There's a lot of reasons you might be telling yourself that you want kids to engage, and that might have to do with your own stuff. It might have to do with policy, but really, at the end of the day, we want students to find success. That's the whole reason we're doing any of this stuff anyway. That has to be your primary concern. And so my agreement with students is kind of like Mr. Miyagi's agreement with Daniel's son. I will show up to teach, you will show up to learn.
I promise teach karate. That's my part. You promise learn. I say you do. No question. That's your part.
That's what I'm going for. Otherwise, what are we here for? So that being said, try and make something that's engaging that we're going to learn about today, have, videos and discussion and things that we're going to talk about that are going to be engaging. And so a lesson in class, a very simple lesson might look like a do now, which is just a simple question to just make sure that folks are actually there. They didn't just sign in and it's just empty space, but they have to answer a question to begin class. Then there's a journal entry. There's typically some type of reading activity after that, whether we're reading an article or a short story or a book or something along those lines. Then there's some sort of activity or conversation afterwards. In an 80-minute period, I really only do 40 minutes worth of work right now because some students take longer, and I think it incentivizes getting done, because once you're done, I allow you to leave my class. You can go and do other work, or you can work on something else for another class, whatever it is that you want to do, but I'm building in that time on the front end. Every single one of those pieces of the lesson show up on the screen in the beginning, and they all have times next to them so that you know exactly how long each activity is going to take. Again, incentivizing. So what you're doing is letting kids know on the front end, hey, look, you're not going to be paying attention for 80 minutes. I need you to do something and you have 5 minutes to do it. When 5 minutes is over, if you didn't start it yet, you can't finish it. But if you need a little bit more time, we can talk about that. Again, what you're doing is giving the kids an end point in mind. You're starting at the end, essentially saying, this is what we need to do today. This is how long it's going to take. And then here's how long each individual piece is going to take. So the train's constantly moving. So there's a sense of urgency to get work done. So then the question is, when you're doing all of this, what do you do when someone doesn't answer?
Bueller.
What do you do when you call on someone and they don't say anything? Because the first way to get engagement is to call on kids. Don't wait for people to just volunteer. My friend Heather calls it voluntelling kids. So she will call on her students, whether they want to or not, to engage. And they have the choice to engage verbally, like they can unmute themselves and talk, or they can just answer in the chat. If someone doesn't answer, I hit them up in the chat with a private message. Yo, are you there? You really paying attention? And if they don't answer that, I kick them out. Yes, we kick them out. But what you want to make sure, so we use Zoom at our school, I want to make sure that my settings are set so that if a kid gets removed from class, they can come back. I am removing students to get attention, not to penalize them, not to take away their given right to education. I have zero interest in that. I have zero interest in like just kicking you out and like serves you right. Now you learned your lesson. No, I just want to get your attention. And if I can't talk to you, if I can't write to you, then I'm going to boot you, because putting someone in the waiting room still doesn't get their attention. It looks like they're just waiting, like there was a glitch. But if it says you were removed from the Zoom call, bro, now I got your attention. Then typically a moment later, kid comes back, hey, what happened? I got kicked out. That's because I called on you and I did this and I did this and I did this and you didn't respond. Are we there now? Cool. Then all I wanted to do is ask you this question or make sure we're paying attention so we can move forward. If a student does not return to class, I suggest that you email or call home. If you email, always CC the student on the email as well when contacting a parent or guardian, but try not to assume the worst, right? There's a lot of glitches. And I get that like there might be some kid that you're pretty sure they just were playing Fortnite or I don't know, watching TV or something like that. But when emailing parents, say, hey, look, I tried to contact your student today. I tried to get them engaged in class today and they didn't answer. I hit them up in the chat. They also didn't answer. I removed them from class to get their attention and they never returned. I'm just making sure that there wasn't some sort of connectivity problem and to just make sure that everything's okay. So what you're doing there is you're not assuming the worst. You're not dropping the hammer. You're not I don't even know where that comes from, dropping the hammer.
You rode a hammer.
No, I didn't ride that.
The hammer rode you on your back.
That's a weird one.
No. I used to spin it really fast, and it would pull me off.
Oh my God! The hammer pulled you off.
Maybe it's a Thor thing. Anyway, you're not assuming the worst. You're just communicating to the parent exactly what happened, telling them going forward, this is how this goes down. I was just looking to make sure that your student was all right. Calling home or contacting home with the intention of getting students in trouble never works. It aggravates the kid, it aggravates the parents, there's pushback from parents, and you're on defense. Be on offense. You're just letting parents know. Then that way, if a student comes back the next day and says, hey, why'd you remove me from class? Hey, I was just trying to get your attention because I want you to win. I'm not interested in being right. I'm not interested in anything else. I'm interested in you winning. And that's hard for anybody to push back against. That's hard for anyone to argue with you. Like, oh, what do you have, an argument back because I was trying to help you win at life? I'm trying to help you! And then, of course, just make sure that you document all of those contacts home so that there's something in the record book. That goes without saying. So now we get to the point where we're going to talk about this. What do you do with the kid that has a 13% that doesn't show up every day, or they show up late, or they never answer, and you kick them out again and again and again and again and again to no avail? They're finding zero success this year. Well, actually, they're finding 13% of success, but that's about it. You remember this. Our job as educators is to motivate, inspire, and educate young people. It has nothing to do with coercion. The difference being to motivate someone means to influence or stimulate someone because there's an actual motive. You're trying to help them get somewhere. There's something to win in this. The word inspire comes from the words in spirit, meaning you're trying to fill someone with the urge or the feeling to do something. To coerce someone is literally the opposite, is trying to persuade someone with threats or with punishment if they don't do something. And I'm not interested in that. Again, back to the idea of Mr. Miyagi saying that you show up to learn, I will show up to teach. So if a student has zero interest, if they have a 13% in class, although there might be 100 things going on with that student, they might need more help, they might feel completely depleted by the year, I'm not really sure what's going on there, and that's worth investigating. But for this small window of time that we have in class, I need to put a pause on that black hole of attention and to focus on the students that are showing up. Now, that doesn't mean you give up on a kid. That doesn't mean I'm done with the kid. I'm finished with this. I'm not giving you any more time. It doesn't mean that. It means for this moment where I can actually show up and educate people, you need to show up and focus on the students that showed up to do the work. And we've talked about this before in videos where there are kids that require a lot of attention because of behavioral issues. There's the kids that require a lot of attention because they have answers for everything. They're excited about everything. They want to learn. And then there's those number 2 students that fall right in the middle that get largely overlooked because we're focusing on the other 2 types of students. So in those moments, I suggest using breakout rooms. I think breakout rooms are a great place to go where students can go and then you can engage with them individually. So those students that really need help, that showed up to do the work but are struggling but trying, it gives you that space to work with them. Then we still have to deal with the students that got kicked out of class, that aren't responding, that are failing big time. I think in those moments, there's a couple of things that you can do. One is to, of course, call home. Find out if something's going on. And then, again, you're being humble and you're being inquisitive. You're showing up and just simply asking questions that might lead to a response that lets you know what's going on. If that doesn't work, number 2 is bring in help. Find a colleague that does engage with that student. Find their coach. Find a teacher that they had in the past that they got along with. Try and bring that person in to help you have that conversation with that student as well. And I think the third thing is to try and celebrate small wins. So if someone shows up to class, if they do the do now, if they did the journal entry and it was only halfway done, hey man, I just want to say, you did half of it and that half was really good. These are the 2 things I need you to fix so that you'll do better. So you're building in these small wins that you need to see from students, and you're building in small wins to celebrate with students as well. Remember, all grades are not equal. Someone's 80 might be someone else's 55. Students are coming in on all different levels, and it's important to celebrate their small wins as you go forward. So I want to hit one more point before we get out of here. One of the ways to inspire young people is to actually be inspiring. It's to show up feeling on fire without knowing that anyone's paying attention. It's like being in a band, right? When I was in a band when I was younger, it's showing up to that bar where no one knows your name and you give it all on the stage, even if everyone else is not paying attention to you, they're yawning in the background. It's not about them in that moment anyway. It's about you showing up and giving your all. And I think that that is an important thing to remember. We cannot base how we are going to react in class based on the engagement of our students, especially in the midst of teaching during a pandemic, where students are dealing with things that we just don't even know because they're missing a huge part in their life, and that is school, somewhere that is body, mind, and spirit has been taken away from them largely. So it's important to, as much as you can, take care of yourself so that you can show up in class and have interesting lessons. But when that doesn't work, sometimes I just make weird stuff. I make myself talking on camera and then I just move in my lips and I look like some old overdubbed kung fu movie.
You bums obviously don't know me.
Oh, I know you. You're one of Lou's men, the one they say can kick like a mule.
Where the video that's playing on my Zoom background is just me talking. Sometimes I use weird backgrounds, like I'm in The Mandalorian, or I'm in Cabin in the Woods. Or I take pictures of students and I put them in the background, or other teachers. And that's just funny to me. And even if I'm the only one laughing, well, at least somebody's laughing at something right now. And the other thing is to try and build relationships as much as possible. And the only place I've really found to do that is in Zoom breakout rooms. That might be a whole nother video later, but it's like showing up in breakout rooms and just talking to kids and building some of those relationships as best we can. Because when you have a relationship, right, I've talked about this before, when you build relationships with students, you get to know who a student is and why they're reacting or acting the way that they are. which doesn't give them an excuse, but it gives a reason for the behavior. This is a really difficult year. We will get through this, even if you just fall face down on your computer desk as soon as the year's over, but we'll get through it. Before you go, I'd like to say, if you think that this video, this information would help anyone, please consider sharing this video. And don't forget to subscribe, hit that little bell notification so that the videos pop up when they're uploaded on YouTube. And if there's anything else you need, you can go right to realrapwithreynolds.com, where you can contact us and sign up for mentoring and all kinds of other madness. That's it for now, everyone.